Gabe, I saw a new TikTok ad this weekend, and it's something, I definitely clicked on. I don't know about you, but you can become a pilot. This TikTok ad is recruiting pilots on TikTok. The caption was, America needs you. Are you interested in learning to fly a plane? What do you think about that? Is that how they advertised jobs back in your day?
Definitely not on TikTok. It's kind of scary to me that they're trying to get pilots on TikTok. I mean, not to like judge the TikTok generation, but it feels like not the group of people that I want flying my plane getting distracted by watching TikTok videos while they're supposed to be flying.
I don't know if the Wi-Fi on planes is good enough to be watching TikTok. So if that helps you out, but I don't know. I saw the
That's
ad
a really
and
good point.
I clicked into it because I was like, "There's no way this is legit." And then, 5 minutes later, I'm halfway to becoming a pilot. So if you see me on your next flight, now you know.
I feel like there may be a little bit more training than 5 minutes of filling out a form that you saw on TikTok. At least I would hope so. Although I do have to say, so my neighbor is a pilot, and I think there's a couple of things going on here. So I do think they're kind of concerned about pilot shortages in the future, because I think there are a lot of pilots that are going to be retiring over the next 5-10 years, and I do think there's a shortage. So that may be why they're advertising on TikTok. But one thing he told me that I never really thought about before until I was talking to him about flying a plane, but he said they don't let you practice flying an actual plane. So if you're a new pilot, the first time you fly an actual plane with people on it is the time that you're flying an actual plane with people on it. You do everything in simulators up to that point, because jet fuel is so expensive that they can't just send you up, in the air to circle for a while and, practice flying a empty 747 or whatever. And I guess I never thought about that before and thought, wow, I wonder how many times I've been on a plane with somebody who was a brand new pilot and had literally never flown a plane before. Just kind of terrifying.
I mean, if we're judging on landings, I could probably, guess a couple. But I will say, I was big into Grand Theft Auto for a while. So if I need to land a plane, I've got practice landing planes on top of rooftops and everything. So I think we could do it.
I'm sure it's very similar.
Oh, it's got to be to an Xbox controller.
Yeah.
It's the exact same thing.
Totally.
I don't know what
Totally.
would be
Maybe
different.
that's why they're advertising on TikTok, is because there's a high circle Venn diagram of people who played Grand Theft Auto.
That's the segment they're using. They're looking for people who have shown interest in Grand Theft Auto 5, and there I am in the list.
They're like 75%. They're like, man, these people are 75% of the way there. They've already done it in a video game, so we're good. and a flight simulator is like, just one step over from a video game.
Gabe, it's pretty soon we're going to have the situation where people flying the planes are actually, on the ground in their home offices working from home. So that'll be a day.
Actually, you're probably right. I mean, that probably isn't that far away, as crazy as that is to say. I mean, they already do that for military stuff with drones. I mean, it's probably not that far away for commercial aircraft too. So, Zach, I had a random thing that I saw this weekend too that I wanted to share with you. Have you heard about these virtual restaurants?
I have, but for those who may not know what it is, can you tell us what it is?
Sure.
So I really want to open one myself.
There's probably multiple versions of this, but the one that I saw over the weekend, which I thought was really interesting, is celebrities or influencers are creating, and I'm using my air quotes here for those who can't see me, restaurants where, like, I'll give you an example. So I think most people know who Mr. Beast is, right? A very popular YouTube personality. So he opened a restaurant where you can get a Mr. Beast burger, but the restaurant doesn't actually exist. You go on your phone or a particular app and you order the Mr. Beast burger, and then just a random restaurant makes this food for you, and then it gets delivered to your house like any other, food delivery app. But I just thought it was such a trip to think about a completely non-brick and mortar restaurant per se, right? Like the restaurant still exists because it has to make the food, but the menu is not theirs. It's just weird, right?
I don't know. I don't know if you've seen, I think the pandemic really changed, not just fast food, but a lot of restaurants. And I always see Taco Bell in the news for these new restaurants. And they launched one. I saw it on TikTok of all places, but it's basically a drive-through, and the restaurant kind of sits above you, and you pull into it's like a bank almost. You pull into a lane and like the food comes down kind of like on a conveyor belt elevator system. It's not like a suction tube where your food goes everywhere, but it
Oh,
kind
that
of
sounds way
comes
better.
down to you pick it up and go. So I think it's really changing fast food in this situation. Just, you know, there's no lobby. You don't dine in. You get your food and go, which
Yeah.
it's interesting to me because if I was doing fast food, I never dine in when I'm eating fast food. Yuck. But if I'm going out to a restaurant, like I like going out. I like sitting in the restaurants and so on. So I don't know if I'd be very good at a virtual restaurant, getting food delivered to me. But if it's fast food, the Qdobas, the Chipotle's, back to that
To
conversation.
go back a couple episodes.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm fine with that being delivered to me, but at some point, I like the experience of going out. But keep in mind, pandemic with everything shut down. If it was the only option to get food delivered to you, which it was for many restaurants in my
Sure.
town, I took advantage of it. I'm not gonna
Oh,
cook
I
cook at home if I don't have
100% took
to.
advantage of that stuff, especially because I live, my town has a lot of fancy restaurants in it, and they had to pivot very quickly because there wasn't a lot of indoor dining in California for quite a while. So you could get extremely high quality meals to go. And these were places, there's a place that's like 4 blocks down from my house that's a Michelin star restaurant. I think they have multiple Michelin stars. Very fancy restaurant. I am not going there on any sort of regular basis. It's like a $2,000 meal for a couple of people, right? So not a place that I'm going to be frequenting. But they did really great to go stuff at very affordable prices. So, there were some cool things to lean into there. But I still think the virtual restaurant thing to me was just weird because it's like, how do you like the logistics part of it was weird to me. And how do you do quality control? It's the fast food restaurants you were talking about earlier. Those are like well-oiled machines with, the logistics part of the business. But how do you do that in an environment where it's just some random restaurant that's cooking your recipe?
And I'm I'm just like imagining, like 5 o'clock, me opening up my kitchen to cook as a restaurant. But one thing you did mention, Gabe, that I want to point out was the transition to these restaurants took from dine in to carry out. I think we should appreciate how fast many people made those transitions. And one thing in
Yeah.
particular is I think it was the greatest comeback of the QR code. Because like for a while I was like, no one uses QR codes; those things are dead. And now suddenly every restaurant has a QR code on the table,
Yeah.
someplace. So I don't know, and it's funny because like if I go to a restaurant, I would much rather like look at the menu on my phone and then do that whole thing. But maybe I'm just obsessed with my phone.
No,
But I would
I don't
much
think that's
rather.
weird. Oh, totally. I think that's completely normal. Restaurant menus are kind of gross. Like you never really thought about it before, but maybe pre-pandemic, but a bunch of people touching them, and yeah, there's maybe somebody at the restaurant who's wiping them down with a dirty rag before they throw them on your table again. But I mean, they're not actually getting clean. So yeah, I'm totally down for the QR code. I actually was just reading an article last night about the Coinbase commercial from the Super Bowl,
Oh yeah.
and they were kind of going back and revisiting that and talking about exactly what you were saying, which is, it was such a brilliant commercial because people had gotten used to QR codes during the pandemic, and there was this rebirth of the QR code. I know our friend Tara at work has talked about that a lot, the rebirth of the QR code. But and that's why that ad was so effective, is because it opened up Coinbase to a huge number of people that probably never would have engaged with Coinbase in any sort of other way, right? But they had that little QR code bouncing around the screen, right? Kind of a nostalgia factor for really old video games, way before Grand Theft Auto. But it was a brilliant ad for lots of reasons.
Well, Gabe, if I know one thing, you're a big Coinbase fan, so I know you definitely scanned that code.
I did not. I'm not into. I'm not a crypto guy, but maybe someday. I just can't invest in something I completely don't understand. Which we should
Come
talk
on,
about
man!
NFTs
It's
at
it's
some point as
magic
well.
internet money. What's not to understand?
How could it possibly go wrong, right?
What could go? We
Yeah.
should make our own like podcast NFT. I think that's something we should do.
There you go. Yeah. this is a much larger conversation, so we probably should see.
We got to pump the brakes on this one.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to dunk. I don't want to dump on crypto. I know crypto is getting killed right now. There are a lot of really smart people that think that it's the future of money, and I don't understand it well enough to be able to talk crap about it. So I'm just going to let it be. If you want to invest in crypto, you are more than welcome. Have at it.
This is not investment advice. So we need that disclaimer
this is
on
not
here.
Investment advice, but please, if you want to do it, go right ahead. I'm not going to, I'm not going to tell you not to with your money.
I'll tell you not to. I have no problem.
Right.
But Gabe, let's talk about
let's shift gears a little bit. So we're going to talk today about, we've been talking a lot lately about social media, and specifically about social media ads, talking, really kind of diving deep into Facebook ads, talking about the do's and don'ts and the ins and outs of Facebook ads. We wanted to shift gears just a little bit today, still to talk about social media, but really talk about some of the other ways that you can engage with followers on social in a slightly more organic way. There are still some great ways to do this through, whether it be through Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or so many of these other channels. So Zach, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about kind of the storytelling component of this, and how you've seen that, just some ideas of how people have been able to tell compelling stories over social media.
You bet. And this is something, Gabe, I think happens more often than we recognize. But if you're scrolling down on Facebook, it gets overwhelming with how many ads you see. And I know we just had an episode on how to build ads, and you have to do it. But there comes a point where it's white noise. People want to break from those promotions. They don't want to see those call to actions. So you need to get a little bit creative with the content you're publishing. And one of the many ways we're going to talk about today is storytelling. And this is something that I've seen businesses in my town do. They take a picture of maybe an employee or someone in the community, and then they just have a story about them that they're telling on that Facebook post, that Instagram post, whatever it may be. Maybe it links back to a blog, but it's a very different technique. I don't know if you've ever seen the Instagram page Humans of New York at all, Gabe. Have you seen that at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's the same thing. It's just pictures, and then it's got maybe a life story behind it. But it's, for a business, it's a very different approach to the ad with a call to action, because you're not explicitly promoting a product and service, and it's very different from the traditional call to action, discount code, whatever that is. It's just a very, like you said, organic content that, it's going to make someone, they see the photo, they're stopped, they're read it. So it's just kind of a break in that feed. And I think there's a ton of opportunity for people to do this. We talked about the Humans of New York option, but maybe you have an employee you want to spotlight, someone in your community you want to spotlight. Fantastic opportunity. You don't have to get in there and promote your business and say, that traditional, download the app, sign up today. None of that. All it is a photo and a couple paragraphs, just talking about that individual.
Yeah, I think it's a great call. And I've seen lots of, service providers that we work with do this very effectively. And I think on top of everything you said, Zach, one of the things that I think is so great about telling stories like this is it builds trust in your community. And that's something that really is priceless when you're building that engagement, building that trust with the people who are in your community. Maybe you're even using it as a way to promote another local business and, help bring them some business. You can engage with their followers. They can engage with you as well. It's just a great way to build each other up in a very natural way and a very organic way on social. I just love the storytelling component. I think there's so many different paths you can take there. Totally.
And it leads into really the second content idea I wanted to talk about today. And that's the influencer, the individual. And I think this term is not the best to use, because when I think of influencer, I'm thinking of, John Doe, who has 10 million Instagram followers and 17 million Instagram likes. I don't think that's the right way to look at this, especially with the conversations, you and I have, Gabe, with these smaller BSPs. They don't have access to someone like that. I don't have access to someone like that. But what I think everyone does have access to is what I'm going to call a micro influencer. Someone in your community who's well known, someone in your community who, everyone might know. Maybe it's an employee, but I think using these micro influencers and maybe tagging them in your content too. You can go on Instagram and Facebook and do Gabe and have Gabe tagged in that post. But doing that kind of that linking, if there's an industry professional and you're doing a story about them or whatever that may be, tag them in that content too. But I think building these advocates, like I said, employees, customers, whoever that might be, this is something we've talked about in the past, but having them promote your content can be huge.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I think the employees one is a hugely untapped resource. I know we talked about that one before, but if you have somebody internally who's very active on social, they're used to posting on social, they get excited about it, lean into that and have them tell the story for you. Obviously, you probably need to give them some boundaries and guidelines of what they should and shouldn't be saying.
Break out the brand standard and communication guide.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to go too nuts, right? I mean, I think that's the balance, is having it come across as natural versus forced from the company, right? And that's why I think influencer marketing can be really effective, is if it doesn't feel like it's the company behind them actually talking for them, right? They're not just a little puppet. It's just hey, I'm sharing this with you as as somebody who's living in your community and dealing with the same things that you are, right?
And I'm big into like the day in the life content, but one thing I've had experience with in the past is I think there's a bit of a gap between what some of the more experienced marketing professionals think in terms of influencer content. So one thing that I had experience with is at UW specifically in college, the university would come to students and say, hey, take over our social media for the day, and they gave you guidelines. It's not like you're going to go out and, go downtown and post everything, but they gave you guidelines, and it was basically just students, interns, whoever they could find, taking over social media for that day, showing, what they did that day, what life was like. And I think that's, there's a ton of opportunity there. If you have interns on the staff, do a social media takeover, let them kind of post a day in the life at your business, something like that. But loop in people who may have a different perspective, I guess, in the influencer and video, marketing channels. But I definitely think that's an option people should be looking at, how they can do that.
I think I mentioned this on the pod before, but in that exact vein that you're talking about, Zach, I know I mentioned that I have a company that I'm involved with, a local company here in town. It's a co-working space. And we had a few months ago, somebody come in and basically just hang out for the day. And they talked to the owner and they talked to some of the members, and they posted all of this content on their social media feeds. And they have a very large number of followers. Their whole purpose, this person who came in, she created this Instagram account to help local businesses during the pandemic. And so she's grown a really great follower base of local people, and just came in and just shot little videos, took pictures. Like I said, did a little interview with the owner. It was fantastic. And, it's very low friction for her. She just was able to come in and work for the day and have that opportunity to, show off your business. If you have somebody like that in your community, whether maybe if it's even somebody with the local chamber of commerce, something like that, right? Have them come in and actually, tell those stories throughout the day. I think it can be really compelling.
That's pretty cool, Gabe. I definitely want to see some links to that content now.
It was great. I'll definitely share it. I'll definitely share it with you. It turned out awesome. And it felt very natural. It felt like we were telling an organic story, and it grew our follower base really effectively. And, there's some nice cross-pollination for hers as well. We did a giveaway for hey, like these posts, and we'll do a giveaway for a day pass. And so that was a little giveaway that was not super expensive for us, but something that was exciting and got us some additional engagement on the posts that were happening during the day as well.
That's pretty awesome. And
the video.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Zach.
Well, I was going to jump into video, but if you wanted to make a final comment on
perfect.
video,
that's exactly where I was going to go too, buddy. So yeah, no, go for it.
I love it. We've talked about telling people to use video in the past, but we really haven't told people how to use video. We've just said, use it, and hope for the best. But I really want to talk about how to use video. And I got to tell a story about an old app. I was probably in middle school when this came out, but do you remember the app Periscope?
Yes. Yeah, I remember that.
I want to say it was one of the very first live streaming apps, and you could go live to Twitter and whatnot. But I just remember we
Hmm.
showed my dad this app, and he was all excited about it. But he'd walk around, and still to this day we quote him on this. But he'd walk around saying like, "Oh, I'm going live," and like pull out his phone and go live. But even now, like every time we're at like an event or something, someone makes the comment to my family like, "Oh, I'm going live," or I better go live," and pulls out their phone as a joke. But I think the whole concept behind using live video is fantastic, and I think it's a great tool to use. And uh, it's one of those tools where you kind of have to plan it a little bit. If you're going live, the advice I always give people is to make it personal. Don't just come on and make a commercial for something. Like one of the
Hmm.
videos I've done in the past that was live was we had this big community barbecue. Several thousand people would come, so we'd go live at the barbecue. We'd talk to people, come on down, and this is what's going on. Kind of walk them through everything. So we were just promoting the event at the same time, but at the same time, it was inviting
Hmm.
people to come down, engaging with them. People would comment, "Hey, how late are you guys doing this?" And you could talk about it on the live stream. "Hey, we'll be here till 8 o'clock at night," whatever that is. But big thing on that is to make it personal. Don't just come on and run an ad and be done. And the other big thing too
Yeah.
is when you start that live video, that live broadcast, your followers are going to slowly fall in. They might get that notification that says, Zach and Gabriel live, whatever that may be. So kind of keep that in mind as you go live. You don't want to come out and like have your live stream content just totally out there in 5 seconds, but you kind of have to build into the content you're live streaming. So a couple ideas on that, and this one just absolutely like kills me just because I think of like some of the coworkers we have here at Calix Game and whatnot. But one of the ideas was to create a talk show within your business and have employees kind of join you and talk about upcoming events, whatever's happening at your business. And I know for us, Gabe, it would be just a fantastic time, and people would have a lot of fun with it. So I really think
Oh, it
that's
would be
that's
completely bonkers, but
it
I
would be
love this
chaos.
idea. I
But
think
I
it's a
think it's a
fantastic idea.
oh, absolutely. But and I think I mentioned this a few episodes back about employees being hesitant to be on camera and that
Hmm.
whole thing. But every time I've tried this, like yes, you have that. You kind of have to talk people into it. But as soon as you hit that go live button and people start talking, the attitude totally changes, and then you get the whole like, oh, when are we going? When are we going live next? Let's go live again. But it's one of those things that engaging your employees might be the easiest way to do it.
Hmm. Yeah, agreed. It's have I don't want to call myself a Facebook Live expert, but I have done a few of them,
You're an
and
influencer,
it is
not an
very
expert.
it's nerve wracking. It definitely is when you're getting ready to do it. But then there is something weird about that. As soon as it goes, you just sort of start to get into the conversation, and then you don't even notice it so much. You just feel like you're having a conversation with that person. It's a really effective tool. And to your point, you made a great point about the notifications piece. Anybody who's following you, whether you're doing it on Instagram or Instagram Live or Facebook Live, they're going to get that notification that says, "Hey, so and so started a live video," and that's a compelling call to action or a compelling notification to get them to jump over to your page to see what's going on. So I think that's a great reason to do it. Is it does that push notification out to folks, but like I said, having done a couple of these Facebook Lives, I think it can be a great educational tool as well. I've done it with a couple of my clients, talking about the app, going through specific features of the app. I know we've had other broadband service providers doing it just to talk about what's happening in their community from a construction perspective. Maybe give updates on where builds are happening, and just have that opportunity. And I'm always surprised at how many people actually consume the content, not only live, but what's great is that video is just going to live on your Facebook page basically forever, right? Or as long as you want it to. So you've got this long tail content that people will continue to come back to even after the live event has wrapped.
And one last, content idea, do a game show. This is something we've been talking about in the team. Like, have a family game night, and you can schedule these in advance so people can get that notification. They can see it on their page. You can promote it as an ad. You can do all that. But then when people come in,
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not necessarily you talking about your business at this point. It's everyone, maybe it's a trivia night, whatever that may be. And this is a nice virtual event too. It doesn't have to be in person. So it's just, if we're being honest, it's a super easy way to engage your followers. And it's, you know, like I said, it's engaging. People will interact with this content. So those are just a couple ideas. Gabe, you did mention how-to content briefly. And that's something I wanted to talk
Yes.
about too, is teaching your audience how to do something. And this is something I used to do with how-to videos. I'd grab an employee and say, show them how to deposit a check on the mobile app, show them how to start a live chat, just simple stuff like that. 1-minute videos, if even. And it's just the employee saying, hey, my name's Zach, and today I'm going to show you how to do this mobile deposit. And then I would pull up, the screen share so you could see both the employee and the, the phone app, because we're talking about the app at the same time. And then we would just walk through that and be done. And I think that's another fantastic tool, because not only am I saying, hey, we have this app you should go check out, but at that point I'm also saying, here's, one of the benefits to using the app. Here's how you do something you need to be doing on the app. Everyone wants to do mobile check deposits. Well, I mean, Venmo deposits now, but but I think just the how-to content is just big, and every business has something they can show someone how to do, whether it's an app or maybe something else. There's something you can show someone how to do about your business.
If you're struggling for content, what are the questions that your customers ask you on a daily basis? Start there. Write down the top 10. What are the 10 most popular questions that you get from your customers on a day-to-day basis? And that becomes your content calendar for the next 10 weeks, and do 1 video a week. They don't have to be perfect either. I think a huge reason why people don't do these is because they are concerned about them being perfect. I will fully admit, when we started this podcast, when I started doing, being more active on LinkedIn, I just wanted everything to be perfect. And you just have to realize that it's not going to be. And the only way you're going to get better at some of this stuff is by doing it and, eventually sucking less at it. But it's just ripping that Band-Aid off to do it. But going back to your comment about the how-to piece, couldn't agree more. I think that's a great way. And it automatically is just going to build that repository of basically knowledge-based videos of, content that people can go back to whenever they do have questions about a specific thing. They can go search for, how do I deposit a check on the mobile app? And that video is going to come up, and having that as just a resource on your page is going to be, huge for avoiding future frustrating conversations with your customers where, they now you've given them a resource to teach them how to do this thing.
That's exactly it. And one of the things I did, Gabe, was when I started doing this video content, I was also in the middle of a website redesign content, and I was thinking, like, how do I integrate these videos on my website in an efficient and kind of educational way? So what I ended up doing is just starting a blog that I called The Learning Center, and on it, each week or each month, whatever the content time would be, I would go on and I'd write out the instructions, say, hey, this is what we're talking about today. And then in that video or in that blog post, I would have that video embedded. So if you didn't want to read the instructions, or maybe you wanted to see exactly what I was talking about, you could have both side by side. So having that accompanying blog post, I think, was also a fantastic tool. And I feel like, speaking of blogs, people underestimate how easy it is to set up a blog. I know, like HubSpot, you can do blogs. That one just comes to mind. There's so many out there. But if you haven't looked into blogging too much, it's not like the old internet days where it's like you behind the keyboard just typing whatever. I don't know. But I think, it's like a newsletter approach. I have a lot of customers that will do newsletters, and a tremendous opportunity there to just take your newsletter content and adapt it, not copy and paste. I didn't say copy and paste, adapt it into a blog format.
I'll say copy and paste. Why the hell not? Right? I mean, if you've got the content created already, why not put it in a different format? Because, not to be super judgy, but the people who are reading a newsletter that comes in the mail are probably not going to be the same people that are reading, content online. Maybe some overlap there, but there's probably not a ton. So I think it's totally acceptable to take that content that you have in different formats and, as we like to say, Zach, content sprinkle it out into different places.
I was waiting for someone to say that in this episode. There's been so many opportunities.
It's a perfect. Yes, it's a perfect word for it, though, right? But it goes back to what you said around creating a video and having that content in, even if it's a written blog and a video. Cool. Like, some people are going to learn better through reading. Some people are going to learn better through watching a video. Have the same content in multiple ways for your customer to consume it, whatever is comfortable for them.
I think so, Gabe. And we should have an episode on just blogs in the future, I think.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, we definitely should. I've plugged this book before. I don't know if I plugged it on the podcast, but there's a great book that I read a few months ago called They Ask You Answer. I would highly recommend it. It's a great read. It's by a gentleman named Marcus Sheridan. Really good read, just all about content marketing and a lot about blogs. And what I really like about the book is it gives very actionable, specific tactics that you can do in your business to improve your content marketing. He talks a lot about video, he talks a lot about written content and SEO. He loves HubSpot, but it's a really good book. I would definitely recommend it. It's a very good read. Well, Zach, I know we're kind of getting to the end here, but we had one other topic that we wanted to cover, which was this idea of Facebook groups and, kind of getting out into the communities in these groups as well. What's been your experience with Facebook groups and how people have been able to leverage that?
It's funny because I think there's
that area.
I think there's a lot of potential in Facebook groups, and I'm not saying there's a lot of potential. People are not using them right now. I mean, they have several billion users using these things. So it's not like people are just not using them, but I think the potential lies within the businesses, we interact with every day. Gabe, are you in any Facebook groups by chance?
I'm not, but I definitely have a lot of customers who have used Facebook groups, I think, very effectively to, see what's going on with competition. If there's, a new competitor jumping into the area, sometimes they get tipped off in some of these Facebook groups that somebody new is coming into these particular areas. I have also seen companies, certainly posting community updates, updates about what's going on at their company, those sorts of things. Sometimes even promotional materials. If they're offering a free promotion, they'll go in there and offer that. I think you got to be very careful with that, because if you're seen as advertising in these groups, I think you're potentially going to get booted out. But if you've built up some credibility of, hey, I've posted about community things, I've posted educational things, I'm not just in here hammering people with ads. I do think you can build up enough goodwill that you can, again, use that term again, sprinkle some advertisements in there a little bit, especially if it's something free that you're offering to your customer. I don't know what your experience is around that.
Well, it's funny because
I think there are ways you can do it.
Well, yeah, when I was at my last job with a bank, oftentimes people would get into these groups and say, it would go both ways. Some days it would be like positive feedback. Hey, hey, I just had this experience, so on, so on. And that's great content to share or interact with. Definitely comment on it and acknowledge it. You don't just screenshot it and forget about it. Interact with that content. People are going to be raving about you. Go in there. But you also get the content that's negative. And I always think that needs addressed too. Someone can get on there and just say totally false things about your business, maybe a bad experience they had. But I think there's opportunity to jump in and, pump the brakes with them a little bit, just kind of ease tensions and almost act as a customer support agent within that group, help them with whatever issues they had, maybe reach out, give them a call. But I think there's just there's so many ways to respond to feedback, and Facebook groups tend to get a lot of feedback about your business. Another use of Facebook groups, though, and this is a few I'm joined, but a few businesses have created groups for their own customers. So I think there's opportunity too for your broadband company or whatever company you have to create that group on Facebook, and hopefully your customers join you, and you can talk about maybe industry specific news, Q&A content, and if you really want to get into this, you could use it for feedback. Like I mentioned, use it as a focus group, get that product feedback, see what people are saying, see how they use your product, but just get that feedback from them. And the cool thing about doing this too, from a business perspective, is you build a relationship with these customers that didn't exist. So the downside of not doing this, you're not doing it. You're not going to see what happens here. The plus side is you go in and you build these relationships, you interact with these people.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, this is separate from your Facebook page. It's a group, not a page. I feel like those get mixed up on Facebook a lot. But just having some kind of technical expertise group or whatever that may be, and maybe have a couple staff in there managing it too. But whatever that looks like, I think there's tremendous opportunity to, again, take that feedback from your subscribers and interact with them.
Yeah, Totally agree with that, man. I think it's definitely an untapped resource for sure.
I've got one group I'm in, and I don't know what it is. It's like a photography group. I can't think of the name in Wyoming, but everyone just gets on and shares photos, and it's always like discussion of like, hey, where did you take that photo at, or how did you do that? What were your camera settings? So on, so on. So I think it's just another way to just for people to interact with other subscribers too. So I.
Yeah, that sounds like the most like positive Facebook group ever, where people are just getting on and sharing these lovely pictures of, you know, of wonderful places that they've gone. That sounds great.
Yeah, well, it's my kind of content, as I said in the beginning, storytelling, and that's all that group is. It's storytelling. That's exactly what it is. And you can combine this. You can combine your Facebook group with storytelling. You can combine your Facebook group with anything we talked about today. If you're running a blog, there's your blog community. But the thing I would do is if you do create a Facebook group for your business, it's not the same as your page. You can't just you can, but you shouldn't just copy and paste whatever you posted to your page into the group. I think there's going to be instances when you can share that content, but groups have a very community focused vibe to them. So if you're posting just ads and call to actions and all that fun stuff, you're not using communities in these groups like you should be. But again,
no,
I think it's a lot of opportunity. And Gabe, I hope you go out and join some Facebook groups tonight. One thing I will say, just because after I talk up Facebook groups so much, you can get a lot of notifications from these groups. So I tend to like hide posts and not see every single post that someone's making to my group. But I still see the top post, and I can
see that getting annoying.
Yeah, and well, there's only so many photos of Wyoming I need to see. I've seen all the state with my own eyes, so. But no, I think
now that you can actually see, you really have seen this whole state of Wyoming with your own eyes.
Oh man, yeah, no kidding. no more glasses for me. So I don't need to look at these photos on the community group anymore. But no, joking aside, I think there's a lot of opportunity in Facebook groups, and it's not as simple as creating a my BSP group and inviting people in. You need to have a goal. What do I want this group to do? What do I want the content to look like? And really go from there. I've seen groups where people just share their internet speed test. So if you want to take that route, you got the multi-gig connections, have people sharing your speed test and jump on and discuss. People love that. There's Starlink groups out there, and they just share their speed test. And people often get in trouble with each other because there's different ways to run the speed test. iPhone to internet or iPhone to router, and they're going to give you different results. Yep. But you have these communities that build up and rally behind you. So, there's so many different ways to use them. And Gabe, we'll have to talk on Facebook communities and Facebook groups, maybe as an episode on itself. But definitely keep that in mind when you're looking at social media.
Very cool. Man, we covered some good topics today around organic stuff, I think.
We've been so good on talking about ads and paid ads and content, call to actions and so on. But to me, and this is my opinion, but I would rather see this organic stuff. I think it just resonates better with me, the consumer, as content I would like to see, as opposed to, someone telling me to sign up for some add-on or something, whatever that may be. But it's really just a different way to use your social media pages. And the thing about this is it's not a, do this instead. It's more of a do all of this approach. So don't just do storytelling and don't just go live or don't just post this content. Still continue to promote your business and your products, services, so on. But keep in mind, and you'll see the results. I mean, you can go to your page insights and look at how posts do. But keep the content fresh.
I'll give you a quick story just to kind of wrap things up here. So there's a perfect example of what you're talking about, of these things kind of complementing each other. I had a customer reach out to me last week who is selling the enhanced parental control solution that we sell. And there was a Facebook post that happened from one of their customers that said she screenshotted a text message exchange that she had with her kids of empty the dryer or I'm going to turn the internet off. And then like 7 hours later, her kids still hadn't done the thing that she asked. So she sent another text message that said, sorry, you just lost internet privileges, and turned off the internet from her app with the parental control solution. Well, she posted that screenshot, with a comment about, thank you, such and such company, for allowing me to ground my kids with the flick of a button. And so the company came over the top and basically said, thank you so much. And then a bunch of other people started to comment on this post of, how did you do that? Oh my goodness, I had no idea that you could do that. And it created all of this really nice organic conversation about the app, the parental control solution that this customer was delivering. And then to bring it full circle back to the ad component of this, the marketer at this company reached out to that person and said, hey, can I use that quote or can I use your social media post as a quote in one of my ads? The person said, yeah, no problem. Absolutely. And so now she's actually going to be running an ad with that direct quote in the Facebook ad. So it's like this whole nice holistic full circle of, this thing happened organically on social. It started getting a bunch of great discussion. And now she's actually using this quote from the customer in ads that she's running on Facebook as well. Just like it's the beautiful circle of social life, man.
I love it. And Gabe, I hate to end the podcast here, but sneak peek into next week, I will be traveling. So we will have a different host with Gabe. I don't think we should drop any names yet. Should we make it a surprise?
We're going to have a guest host. We'll let it be a surprise. We're going to do our first guest host.
We've never done a guest host, so hopefully they. No. Hopefully they don't.
It's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, hopefully it's not just a replacement and I'm out for good now. But no, next week I think it'll be a fantastic episode. So definitely join us next week with our guest host. If you haven't yet subscribed to us on YouTube, you can watch our video podcast there. And as always, Spotify has video as well, and then Apple Podcasts as well, along with your favorite podcast app. So don't forget to give us a follow. We'll be back next week with our special co-host, and I will see everyone in 2 weeks now, Gabe? I don't know when my next. Yeah, I don't know when I'm back in the office now. So we'll give everyone a few weeks to recover, and again, join us next week with our special guest host. And Gabe, you'll have to keep me updated with how things go.
Will do.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you soon.